How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, talking with Simon Whitfield. This is a round 2 interview where we go into some really deep stuff. We talk about religion, which you guys know that I obviously don't mind talking about, and spirituality. We also dive into some politics stuff. And in hindsight, recording this intro after I've already recorded the podcast with Simon, he's obviously Canadian, living in Canada near Victoria, and I am in Northern California and American. So having the conversation around just some of the rhetoric that Trump's been talking about, making Canada a 51st state and things like that, I really haven't sat down to think like, what would that feel like? Or what are the conversations happening on the other side of the border where these types of essentially words or threats or recommendations, however you want to look at it, from Trump, how that might make them feel. And yeah, I won't say how I feel exactly because I'm still trying to formulate what exactly should or should not happen, and what I support and do not support. There's a lot going on in the world right now, but just wanted to kind of put that out there to say, like, I unapologetically have this conversation with Simon and share from my heart and the way I feel and think about things. I am not saying I'm right in any particular way. I'm not saying I'm wrong in any particular way. I'm just saying that this is a really open and honest and raw conversation. So I really appreciate Simon being here for that. So without too many more words, want to introduce you to, again, awesome man, Simon Whitfield. So you're at home.
At home. Yeah. Remember, doing all the things.
Yeah.
Good times, good fun.
What are all the things? What's been going on in your
What are all
world
the
lately?
things? Usually first and foremost is just trying to stay upright by getting a little bit of activity in each day.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, connect with family, kiddos, and all that stuff. And then moving pieces of paper around the desk to appear to be busy.
Yeah.
The last thing of the day.
Yeah.
And then trying to avoid that same paperwork taking over my whole life is like the last part of the day. So,
Yeah.
no, all joking aside, involved in the same interesting, fun ventures that I feel like I get myself into and all that comes with it. So,
Yeah.
as you know.
How many irons does Simon have in the fire?
I mean, I really just have one at a time. I suppose there's a couple other things that I do. They all come back to the same thing. I mean, I have a really, I feel very content in and focused on why it is that I get up in the morning and what it is that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so any business venture that I'm involved in, any venture I'm involved in always comes back to the same thing, which is, just making, I don't get right into it, but my driving ethos is that the only thing that matters is that you have clean drinking water. I would what else is more important? That's where it all starts. So everything and all things that I do revolve around how do I contribute to accessible, clean drinking water.
Yeah.
And, I'm involved in an organization locally, and I spend my day thinking about things that always wind back to the fact that if you don't have clean drinking water, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
It's the most basic thing we have. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, we're made up of a high percentage of water. I forget what it actually is, but that makes sense. It's a very important thing.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing, our life revolves truly actually around trying to get back to bed soundly, to sleep soundly,
Mm-hmm.
That's the general gist of your entire day is actually how do I get back to bed soundly and how to sleep soundly? And the first thing you do in the morning, whether you are conscious of it or not, is you make your way towards water. So
yeah, gotta hydrate.
At the end of the day, that's all that really matters. So that's what I focus on.
Yeah. Where did that focus? What was the birth of that? Where did that start to become oh, I'm really centering my life around this?
I don't know if there was a epiphany. I don't know. I mean, in Canada, we have this. The indigenous population in Canada access to so the number of indigenous communities in Canada that are on a boiled water advisory is just blows your mind. It's
Really?
deplorable. It's such a wait, what? That's the most basic thing. And so hearing somewhere along the line when you hear that stat, just around how many communities in Canada are on boiled water advisories and don't have access to clean drinking water. Really, you go, wait, like you can't, and it, you know, you have that moment of like, wait, that's no, that can't be right. And then when you start really thinking about it, like, again, that's just, I would challenge anyone. I don't really understand how there could be anything more important. And it's, to me, it's like, it's a bit about an offering too. You know, I grew up in Kingston, Ontario. I grew up in the institutional capital of Canada, was the original capital. I grew up within eyesight of the original Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the oldest school in Canada, a little public school behind it. There's a university, a college, a military. There's the police. There's 5 prisons there. It is the capital of institutions, right?
Well,
And so to me, you know, and you either would go then into the institution in whatever form that is,
yeah.
or and ultimately the expression that would be the military, or you go to the antithesis of the military. So if like your goal was at the end of the day is like this is a reduction of violence, then the greatest peace offering you could ever have would be water, right? Like I don't
Mm.
want to fight. Here's clean water. And that to me is like meaningful, and that's what drives me.
Yeah.
That's like that's my offering. Is like all I can do is contribute to clean water, drinkable, potable water, and then you do with it as you may. But
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna fight. So
Yeah.
here it is. So yeah, there you go.
So are you more of like when you come into a situation that is high stakes, high stress, are you potentially life threatening? Would you consider yourself more of like a fight or flight type of a person then?
I bet you just matters on what day you got. I think it's probably the same for all of us, eh? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when did you catch me? Did I sleep well?
Yeah.
Like,
I tend to be the fight person. I've actually tried to be the flight person. And I take if there's some like a big animal or something, yeah, like I'm probably not gonna try to fight the thing. Although I have pulled a knife out trying to take on a bear one time and my wife was like, no, because it was stealing our bag. So like that's another story. But
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I would, yeah, the only way you're ever gonna find out is when you get in situations, eh? And
hmm,
I don't know if I've lived a pretty sheltered life. I've never been attacked. You know,
yeah,
I don't fear for my safety.
yeah,
But I don't know. On the soccer field, I know my teammates can rely on me and I'll
yeah,
show up every time.
yeah.
So maybe that's the test right there. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You're still yeah, I remember you saying that in the first time we talked was like that you wanted to be known as the person who showed up. So between the time that we've talked last time to where we are now, do you feel like that you are still invested in becoming more and more of that personification you're going to show up?
I mean, yeah, yeah. I. There are times where I was like, man, you know, maybe I could show up a little less.
Yeah.
You know,
Being a little bit of too much of a yes man.
I don't know if it's that. No, I don't. I don't know if it's that. I think it's just, yeah, it's. I don't know. There's sometimes it'd be just nice to have some peace and quiet. So,
Yeah.
you know, certainly gone and walked into a couple chainsaws where I'm just like, ugh, why did I
Mhm.
do that? I didn't, you know, why am I standing up for this? This
Yeah.
seems, why am I just standing here alone? Like, I think, did everyone else realize that this just wasn't worth standing up for? Or did I miscalculate? Or am I just bravado? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll find out.
Do you have an example of that if you don't mind me asking? Is it too
Uh,
sensitive for
no, no, that's okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to stay pretty general on it, but just in terms of, yeah, there are some situations that I see that I have a hard time just sitting in my hands. And that was it. I learned at the boarding house, like this expression, sit in hands, you know, just go sit
Mhm.
on your hands and be quiet.
Mm.
And, yeah, I don't know. There's some times where, and been some times recently where I probably have just sat on my hands, but, and I certainly would have slept better, but I also, and that's not to say I'm right. It's just right. It's right for me, you know.
Mm.
I just
Yeah.
It's whatever story I got going. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's some moments I could probably just be like, yeah, you know what? Probably could have just kept walking,
Yeah.
but just look the other way. But
Yeah.
here we are.
No,
Like,
I can relate to that. It's interesting you say sit on your hands. My mom used to say that to me usually when I was in trouble or whatnot, and that was the hardest thing for me ever to do was to sit on my hands because if I was in timeout or whatever, being able to try to focus the brain on literally just one task that truly is simple, don't speak, sit on your hands. If in the context for me, that was like one of the hardest things ever. I haven't thought about that in years, but now kind of looking back on it, like that is a difficult thing to do, especially if you're a passionate individual. And obviously, you seem like a passionate person, so it's probably not easy to just walk by something and not want to stand up for what you know to be right, what you know that you could potentially influence. Like it's not an easy thing to
what
do.
you think to be right.
Yeah. Well,
Not
how do
what.
you
Yeah.
yeah, let me ask you that. Like how do you know, do you ever know like cuz you seem very focused on like how do I put this? Like you want to do the right thing and you know you said like well what's right for me? Do you ever have like full confidence or conviction in going into something like oh this is the right thing?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you when you like lead with compassion, lead with love, but that's easier said than done. We talked about this
Sure.
last time. We all kind of know all the cues and all the things to say, right?
Mhm.
It's like, do you actually go do those things? And do you continue to do those things? So, yeah, I don't know. Work in progress.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If I may ask you another deeper
Oh,
question.
that's today.
Yeah. For your view on like what humanity is, what we all are, you know, talking about right and wrong, do you have a belief one way or the other that like at our core we are all good or like or we are like all bad or do you think that there is a split between the two?
Oh yeah, there you're really getting into the good stuff here. Yeah, I have a really hard time when people are like really get down to what's good and evil, right and wrong. Hurt people, you
Mhm.
know, like I don't know. I don't really ascribe to it's so dehumanizing when we sit and say, you know, good, bad, evil, whatever. I have a hard time with that. It's it's not an easy topic, and it certainly comes down to where you came from,
Mhm.
opportunities you had, have you been marginalized in your life? I don't know. I speak from such a position of just such immense privilege that it's very easy for me to sit around and say good, bad, evil.
Mhm.
Like all right, guy, like, tell us how much you struggled. So I don't know. It's a hard one. But to back to you, like, what your question was? What was the genesis of your question? Like, are we good or evil? Are we?
Yeah, like this is something I've been wrestling with internally for a while is just to give you a little bit of context for why I asked the question. So I grew up in a religious household. Now, granted, my experience for spirituality and religion was very much different than my peers because I came from a very conservative religion, but my mother and father were first generation, like a part of this Christianity, subsect of Christianity religion. And so I got to see them live out actions wise, kind of both sides of the fence. So that was interesting for me. But we grew up with, you know, in the religious perspective of like, well, what you have internally is a flawed human, like a soul that, if left unchecked, would uncontrollably go down the path towards evil. And so, like, we need, you know, in this case, Jesus to come in and like make the bad good. Um, and now that I've gotten a bit older, I don't subscribe to that as heavily because I think if we for example, if we took out a picture of our 5-year-old self and we listed off like our internal voices of the things that we say to ourselves that are not nice, like we'd have a hard time speaking directly to that little kid, like, oh, you're bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I come from this place of like, well, I don't think that I'm like inherently good because I know that like the desires of my own heart and like the things that I want that I would deem, you know, to be not good. But at the same time, like I can't just totally believe that, like, I don't know, like I'm nothing. Like, because if I believe that I was created in the image of a God, a creator, even if I am flawed, like, well, if he died for my sins, he died for all of me, right? So like I need to put value on that to some respect. So I'm trying to figure out where that is, because on one side it's like there's nothing good in you. Only thing that is good comes from external, and that's from God. And then the other side of that is no, I'm actually good inside, and the only thing that comes from outside is bad. And I really think it is a bit more nuanced than that. But for some reason, these two opposing fields of thought, like, people really will get their pitchforks out to support one or the other. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
that's where that question comes from.
Huh. Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know if I mean, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see in when people have religion, have faith, I I don't know. I'm quite content in the notion of not knowing,
Yeah.
and quite content in not quite content. I try to be
Yeah.
content
Yeah.
in the notion of not knowing. And I like that, I'm good with that. There is no clarity.
Yeah.
There's no relief. It just is what it is.
Yeah. I struggle with that, actually, like to like want to like not empathize, but agree, because like I can think, and I'm sure that I could bring up a list of things that are really good and really bad, and like we would both agree, like, yeah, that's a good thing, that's a bad thing. But the closer you kind of come together, then it gets gray, and it's hard to be understood. And I think it comes down to more of like, what's the intention behind the action?
Yeah. I like the gray.
Yeah. What do you
Like,
like about it?
I don't know. Otherwise, we'd be robots.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd just be some AI program running
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just
That's
yes
the
and no.
human condition.
Yeah.
What is it? Life is beautiful and it's a struggle, and that's the deal.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. And yeah, I don't know. It's like so much of it's a matter of expectation, isn't it?
Mm.
Do you have like this expectation that's going to be different and this need for it to be different? And again, like, look at us, like we're sitting on these high tech devices when we get to pontificate about how we feel about things. Like,
Mm.
even in that, just such a privilege to be able to do. Like, what'd you do today?
Yeah.
Oh, we did this, and someone else is like, yeah, okay, cool. I like mined the cobalt for your
Yeah.
your
For your
screen
cell
there.
phone.
So keep telling me how things are good and evil, and I
Mm.
should or shouldn't do that. So I'm not to say that as like a to diminish or to like patronize us. It just is what it is. And so
Mm.
I don't know. Yeah. I like thinking about those things. I'm also good with just not knowing,
Yeah.
like, like
Yeah.
the clock just keeps on ticking, and there you go. Like, you come to a big conclusion and you're like, this is it. And they're like,
Yeah.
cool. Want to go play? You
Yeah.
want to kick a ball around? Like, yeah, let's go do that. So that's
Yeah.
one of the things I find. Like, I love like watching you watch a religious ceremony, and you see ritual, and you see humans come together and they embark on all these things, and they like signifies this, and it is the bond between that, and it's important that we like cherish our history, all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I watch it all. Great. I also like the idea that at the end they're like, so Fred, what you doing later? That was cool. And then they like wander off and they go do something obscure, like they go play tiddlywinks or chess or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like the contradiction in that. That to me is like that really beautiful part of the human experience. Like, they've done all the things, all the ceremony. Like, if they look at the inauguration ceremony, like you watch that and just like, man, it's all this like pomp and circumstance and,
Mm-hmm.
and formality. And we're all like, this whole group of people are like really mad about it. This whole bunch of people like, and then you watch in the background and there's just a bunch of people going like,
Yeah.
like, just don't know what they're doing. They're just like, I don't know, man. I'm thinking like, I got to get the laundry later, and I got
Mm-hmm.
maybe that group of people aren't thinking about the laundry, but they got their own dumb shit going on, and I kind of like that part. I like the formality, and then I like the nuance of the human experience where it's just also patently absurd, ridiculous, and kind of, if it wasn't in some cases terrifying, it'd be funny.
Yeah. Yeah. You seem to be a very observant person. Is that accurate?
I mean, I only have myself to reference to, so I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
Have people
we
told you
all
you're
are though, aren't
observant?
we? Like we're just all just taking in the world and
Yeah.
what making our way through it the best we're able. And I don't know. Yeah, I do. I do love watching I love watching in the background. I
Hmm.
love watching, if I watch NBA sometimes, I might just watch one player who doesn't have the ball. I'll just watch the whole game. I'll like, even if they're on the bench, I'll try and see, like, I wonder what that's like. I was watching the Boston Celtics guy the other day, Derek Brooks, maybe.
I
Uh,
don't watch it,
one of the
but
guys.
yeah.
It was just amazing. It was amazing to watch how he always seemed to be in the right spot. And the commentator said it earlier, like, you watch, he's just always in the right place. He's just a real genius player. He's like the unassuming guy that's quietly on this team. And sure enough, as I watched, I was like, yeah, look at that. He's just like, there he is, there he is, there he is. So I like observing that piece. And like I said, the inauguration ceremony was quite interesting. It's just watching the body language. Take all your politics out of it. Like just watching the background and watching the body language was quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. So let me ask you this question. This is one that I've been asking more as of late, and I've had a wide variety of answers. So I'm excited to ask you, given the prior 20 minutes of this conversation. When you die, what do you think is the best case scenario, or what do you have a hope of what would happen? I feel like I know what you're going to say, but
No idea.
no
No
idea.
idea.
Do you have
Just
a do you want something to happen?
absolutely not. No, I'm just good with it or not. Like as scared as the next person, you know. But I don't for in terms of what happens next. Like I don't know. Maybe the people up in the simulator with their little tea cozy hats and their like comfy chairs and type on the computer, like, oh hey, come on, join us. Like
Yeah.
you get to simulate the next round. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you just float through the eternity, the endless abyss of space. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
I'm here now. Like the the only time is this moment now. So that is like see it when I'm looking at you. I'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
Or not, because I won't know. So that sounds good too.
You sit on both sides of this equation, and I'm trying to like figure out how is that possible.
I mean, it just doesn't matter, right? I'm quite content in the notion that everything and all things are arbitrary,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like, look, I had this really funny moment during COVID where I was sitting out over there right at the US border on the ocean. Like, you can literally, when my background here is literally there's a arbitrary line somewhere there
Yeah.
where this person on the other side, they probably can actually see me right now. And we can see them, we just don't know it. They have this little arbitrary piece of paper with these arbitrary numbers and this name on it that says like, hey, there's this arbitrary line out there in the middle of the strait where if you go over, like the rules around this thing that's out there are different and like your ability to move about you. So this was whatever that was 5 years ago, 4 years ago,
Yeah.
where I'm sitting there and I'm like, right. Like I'm allowed to be on this side of that line because I would happen to be born here. I happen to be given this little funny piece of paper that told me like, yeah, it's got a neat little hologram on it. That means that arbitrary piece of water there, I'm allowed on this side, but if I go over that side, there's a bunch of different rules. It's just arbitrary. So I'm good with that. And so I'm not really sitting on both sides of it. I just love, like, I'll find myself listening to a hardcore pro Trump person and going like, oh, okay, I guess I can kind of,
Yeah.
see that. And then listen to someone else and I go, right, okay. I see how I love that. That's so fun. I really enjoy trying to figure out, like, because you really see, especially in politics, especially in this day and age, you see people are so adamant that it's this or that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, right. Like you are just, it's cognitive dissonance confirmation bias. We just all have it. I have it. And sometimes I like sitting there just listening. The one thing I will really try and do is spend the time to listen, just listen,
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting and exercise to sit and go, hey, tell me about that. I don't really,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean that's the way it is? Like, tell me about that. And not being in a place where you're like, I can't even hear you. No,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't have a lot of time for that. I have no time for that, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I think it's a very natural human thing. Everybody wants to have a sense of belonging. And I think that we really do want a leader. Like people like, and I say people, me, myself included, there's something comforting about looking to someone or something and like believing, oh, well, they know they have my best interest in mind. And then if you believe that and you jump on the bandwagon of like, oh, well, this is what we're doing now, or this is the belief system, or this is, what the fiscal policy is, whatever, people, I'd say majority people are like sheep and
Mhm.
like cows. Like
Mhm.
we like to get in line because there's some comfort in that. Because like you said, at the end of the day, it's you go through all the rituals and then you kind of okay, what are we going to eat for dinner, or what are we going to do next Saturday for to spend some time together. Like it goes back to community. Really, you're wanting to spend time with people, and then you want to find common ground. I mean, yeah, that's what commonly is said, is like if we were able to sit down with the person across from the aisle and find the commonalities, that's what brings up like more of the human empathetic side of that person. But I would, yeah. In our day and age, right now with the political situation, I was talking to a couple of my buddies. Um, some of them are on one side of the conversation, others are like on the other side of the conversation, and like I sit here more kind of on we'll just say like the Trump side of. There's things he's doing, like this whole Gaza thing. I'm like, I don't really know about that. But in terms of like going after the fraud stuff, like I'm like very for that. But then like some people are not at all, not necessarily not for fraud, but they can only focus on the things that they think aren't right. And I'm like trying to like lift my head up out of where I usually sit and place it on the other side of the table to like try to just understand. And it's really difficult to do when, like you said, when we have all those biases, when we were brought up a certain way. Like, and I think I'm coming to the conclusion that I don't think everybody needs to be on the same side. If we want to talk about diversity, it's like should be diversity of thought, diversity of experience, and that collectively brings together like a whole functioning body.
I guess that is the issue there, though, that if you only have a certain group that are able to contribute their thought, like that relies on the idea that people are given the opportunity to contribute their thought and speak their thought. And if we sit around and kind of go like, yeah, accept that you can't do that, sorry, you don't get that thought, you don't get that thought, then that really isn't a diversity of opinion. It's more like a diversity of approved opinion, which in
Mm,
itself is not a diversity of opinion.
yeah.
I don't know, you back to something you said, you asked about he said people are sheep. Like one of my favorite stories of my dad is when he was a junior research scientist at DuPont. They were put on a bus and said, we're going to this other plant. We're going to work there. And everybody, here's your DuPont t-shirt. Everybody put it on. My dad said, I don't wear team t-shirts.
Mm,
And they said, no, come on, man. It's everybody in it. We're all together here. My dad said, you didn't hire me to be all together here. You hired me to think independently and have scrutiny and see things that maybe others don't see. So while I'm part of this team, believe me, I am, but I ain't wearing your t-shirt.
mm,
And it was like the Aussie side of him stepped up and said, sorry, I can't put on the team t-shirt. He paid a price for it, but he eventually was senior research scientist at DuPont for 35 years and
mm.
has written some incredible papers. But he comes at it from, he's not trying to be, my dad don't care about being popular, just cares about getting stuff done. So,
Mm.
you know, that's like when I heard that story, I was like,
A big sense of pride.
yeah, I was like, good job, Dad. I know that feeling. Like, I
Yeah.
have trouble wearing the t-shirt too. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm, that's a profound story. Is your dad still alive?
Yeah. Dad's writing papers on
Oh, really?
all those things. He sits at home at the kitchen table writing, doing the math on, and he gets very frustrated. He gets notes back from say, oh, it's so nice to see a older gentleman trying to contribute. He's written like a 500-page paper on the electrification of the BC Ferries fleet. And you're like,
What does that
well,
mean?
yeah. So, but that's his journey. I don't know if he's okay with that, but he better be.
Yeah.
Just the way it is, what it is. So,
Yeah. How often do you talk with your dad?
probably 3-4 times a week. He lives on the
Oh,
other side
yeah.
of the country, but it's just always been that. Both of my folks, I spend a lot of time just checking in.
Yeah.
You know, they're of that age where you better check in now because
Yeah. You never know.
It just is what it is. So,
Yeah. How old are your parents, if you don't mind me asking?
early 80s.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. And
Yeah.
he's still writing papers. That's amazing.
Oh man, he's writing bigger and bigger papers, and yeah, it gets right into whether it's, yeah, I can't even, sometimes I just have to pretend I know what he's talking about. And then my
Yeah.
mom's doing, just had knee surgery, and she's already
Mm.
making her way back to the pickleball court. So
At 80 years old, man, that's
yeah, they're
amazing.
doing fine. My mom, the only rule with my mom is don't chip it over her head playing pickleball. Don't try and make her run backwards. But
Yeah.
she's I've seen an 80-year-old take on some 40-year-olds, and when she's beaten me, so I don't know,
Wow.
like, she's the athlete in the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So they're on the East Coast. Does he still work for, I guess not with DuPont
No,
anymore.
no, he loves it. He just sits at the table and does it to keep his mind
Okay.
engaged, and he's written dozens and dozens of
Yeah.
papers on, mostly centers around natural resource management.
Mm.
And now with this trade war that's going on, all these tariffs, he's written a bunch of papers on how to work through them,
Navigate it.
et cetera, et cetera. So
Mm.
I have a question though. I have a question.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So how does one's behavior not disqualify someone? They're they're Yeah, I think
You're talking about Trump.
well, I didn't say Trump.
That's
I
what
didn't say Trump. But there are certain behaviors that I'm just like, oh man, that just kind of like, I'm like, you're disqualified. And that's
for,
not to say, listen, I do not think, like, I watched the behavior of the other side of that, and I was like, whoa, like, you just want to keep, it seems to me if you're voting for that, you just want to be continuously lied to too. Like, you're saying, just tell me everything's okay, and tell me that
right.
there's not like cognitive decline going on there, and I'll just believe it. And they're like, okay, like, that to me is the same thing. So I don't make a differentiation there. But the one person's behavior, without naming names, just feels like it just disqualifies them from any position. And that would never fly in any other situation where you could behave like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then people would say, yeah, but policy thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, like, go find someone who's
Yeah, that's usually the
doesn't
number one thing
disqualify
that
them.
says is like have you seen his policies though? Yeah. When Trump first hit the scene is in the politics world, everyone kept on saying like that he's so smart, he's a marketing genius and all that stuff. And I got into and these are people who like I see very eye to eye with on values and systems of governance and things like that. And I was like, he's so like I just couldn't stand how he presented himself. First of all, like everyone says that he's super smart because he speaks at a fifth grade reading level, and I don't know if that's true, honestly. I'll say this: I have one kind of quote that I really try to live by, and it's that I want others to be the witness for right and wrong, but never the standard of them. So I never look to any one person and kind of say like, oh, they're the model that I want to follow after. I think they can have attributes that I would want to emulate, but I never kind of have like, oh, that's my role model, because in the men who I've known, even biblically, who are kind of held up on pedestals, aside from like Jesus, all of them have had huge falling outs. For example, David was like this great warrior, man after God's own heart is what's written in the Bible, but he literally saw this woman bathing naked on a rooftop, called her into his palace, slept with her, got her pregnant, didn't like that, called that woman's husband off the battlefield, tried to get him to sleep with her so that he could say like, hey, this is not my doing that got her pregnant. He wouldn't. The guy's name was Uriah. He wouldn't do that. He slept at the city gates and was like, send me back to war. Anyway, David sent him back out there to the front lines, got him killed, and then he took that woman. So, like, that's a really bad thing. But by and large, for the majority of the mistakes that he made, he was still somewhat of a good leader. So if I like look at all these,
Sorry, did you just say he's somewhat of a good leader?
yeah, somewhat, and like he did things that were good leadership wise.
Would you give the nuclear quotes to somewhat of a good leader?
I would actually, because there's no human that I've ever met that's perfect. Now, with Trump, I just say it outright. I would never model any type of behavior after him. I wouldn't say to my children, "Look at this great man," like, and I don't even have kids yet, but for the things that are going down right now, one thing that I wanted to see for a long time is like, yeah, like I work my butt off and then the government tries to take 30 to 40% of all of my money constantly. And then they go and spend it on all this stuff, black budget stuff. I'm not even talking about the USAID stuff. I'm just talking about the power projection that we are all over the world trying to control and topple governments for our own betterment. Like I want to see all that stuff stop. And it's sadly it's never going to stop. So to answer your specific question, I I don't there's no clean answer to it, but I don't discredit anyone on either side based on some of their actions. I try to look at them as a whole. If I was to meet Trump one on one, like if I had the opportunity to have him on this podcast, like I'd ask him the same questions I ask anybody, like where'd you grow up? Like, because if I can understand the context for who he is as a human being, then I feel like I can really get to know a person, and then I can make a judgment. But I think it's dangerous making judgments because at the end of the day, I can only see what I observe through my eyes, through my ears, through the conversation, and I truly don't know what's going on at the core of his human being. So, like, yeah, I mean, I don't like Trump. I don't like Biden. I don't like a lot of these people. I'd much rather see someone who was a farmer in solitude for 60 years go and lead a country because he's connected with the earth. He's connected with nature. He's connected with what it means to work with your hands. And, like it's those blue collar type of jobs that I think create character. But yeah, I'm just kind of going off of my own.
No, I
thing here.
was just, I mean, yeah, that's a good answer. I'm just always curious on that piece. I feel like there's a certain, I'm not asking for, there's no part of me that would think that there's a requirement of perfection. When I was like,
Yeah.
perfect is the death of good.
Yeah.
But there seems to me a level of, yeah, there's just
Say it.
seem, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think there's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just, to me, there's like a certain way in which you carry yourself, and
That matters.
yeah, and that like, there is a way to be disqualified from those things. And
So would you have qualified either side of the equation?
no, I mean, the, I felt like it kind of came down to like the one side's like, we can keep telling you everything's fine.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah, that's not helpful either.
Yeah.
Like, stop pretending it's fine. And the other side was like, here's fear, 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 fear. But when I watched the inauguration ceremony, it just really struck me how much of it was about him.
Hmm.
It wasn't about the office of the presidency. It always came back to this, like, when has that ever worked out? Where, like,
Pride goes before fall. I 100% believe it.
yeah. So I just like, how is that even just the word make, make, not educate, not empower, make America healthy. I'm going to make you healthy.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't elicit some concern. Then, like, we have different definitions of the word make.
Mm-hmm.
Make America great. And then just the language that was used within that speech was just like, is this about the common good of people? Is this about compassion for one another, or is this about just one individual? So again, like, that's the hard part. Now you can ask me, like, it's a great question. Like, well, what have I done? Huh. Like,
Yeah.
no part of me is like, the other side was right. The system's broken,
Yeah.
and this two-party system, you all know it. This
Mm-hmm.
two-party system's broken. The ability of the lobbyists to come in and control what gets done is broken. The spending, yes, there are pieces of it that spending was totally and utterly out of control. All those things are true. I just had a hard time with it. I was like, man, if you watch this inauguration, how do you not, like, this is about this specific person. This isn't about the office of the presidency and bearing the tremendous responsibility that comes with it. This seems to be about this savior that has come to save you.
Mm-hmm.
When has that ever worked out?
Yeah, it doesn't. Not in the way that's currently going on. You know, this has me thinking a little bit on even a broader perspective. It's like if you look at all of the empires of old, Greece, Medo-Persia, Babylon, the United States, any major empire, on average, and I have looked this up, every empire lasts on average 250 years. 2025 minus 1776 is 249 years. And I think that in an imperfect world where you have, you know, people that come together, anything that starts grassroots, that's why everyone always tries to use those coined terms. It's like, well, let's get to the grassroots level. When you have a small group of people, you can communicate effectively in a group of 5, in a group of 10. But as soon as you get to a group of 100, 200, 250, you start to have these multi-level layers of communication, and then things that are said at the top never fully and accurately disseminate to the bottom level, I don't think. So you apply that across, you know, however many 100 million people live in the United States, or just the millions in government, like the few million in government. Like there's a level of miscommunication, like where, you know, you can say these things up at the top, but to have that translated to where everybody's in the same vision and as actually understands the context of whatever action is being chosen to take, it's literally impossible to do. And then you throw in a few bad actors, just a little bit of yeast to the dough, like you can blow it all out of proportion and bad really quickly. So honestly, like if we're talking about, you know, where do you go from here? I think that the end of this empire is coming to its final days, and we're doing begging, borrowing, and stealing everything that we can to last a little longer. I mean, just from a budgetary sentiment alone, regardless of the right and the left and, you know, the different political parties, you can't run a system like that. Something has to break, and you have to start over again. Whether it's just like the Nile River or any river that floods its banks every so many years, catastrophe on this earth has to happen in order to like revitalize, spread the nutrients throughout the soil, and then you can start to plant again. So it's just a cycle. I think that it's all going to fall apart anyway.
Does that come from, well, religion, like the second coming? Is there like a feeling of like despair, then to alleviate despair, the hope is that this is the like the ushering in of this fall is actually the second coming? Is that a religious thing? Like that, where does that come from?
The story, like the belief.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah, it
so
comes straight out of Revelation or any of the New Testaments. I mean, it talk about in the Old Testament too, but yeah, like in the very beginning of the Bible, Adam and Eve, they're there. Sin enters the equation, and then God's like, I'm going to send a savior, and it's going to come through your bloodline. Goes all the way down. Adam and Eve, they have all these generations through the line of David. Jesus is born. He comes back, or he comes in the form of a child, offers salvation, dies for their sins, and then, yeah, it continues on to, if you believe that, modern day, to where here before too long, Christ comes back because the angels are holding back all of the just horrible destruction and basically the world imploding on itself until the final moment, right before it all, we basically probably would destroy ourselves. Then God comes back and is like, okay, whoever is for me is for me. Whoever's against me, who is against me. Whoever doesn't want to be in heaven, you won't be there. Whoever does, then that's awesome. And then it's like a purification. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But yes, that's where it comes.
that's the interesting piece, isn't it? Like all the way to like, so do you believe me? And then they're like, the gate's for you. And then if you don't, sorry about that. Like,
I don't believe that actually.
okay, but that's okay. Yeah,
A lot of
that's what
people
it
do.
sounds like though. Yeah, I know a lot of people do, and I appreciate you clarifying that. But that sounds like to me is like show us your faith.
Yeah.
Got enough faith? Like that's enough faith. Yeah, you can go.
No, it's not. I don't think it's like that at all. Because it's like, so I'll send you a picture. It's a remarkable picture because it really encapsulates this experience I had. But I went to Papua, Indonesia with in a bush plane, and we flew 2 hours interior to meet with people who had only been contacted in the past 10 years by quote unquote the outside world. And if you walk in a week's further into the jungle, there's people that live there who have never come in contact with any modern day people. So let's just rewind 50 years before that island was even closely contacted by, you know, the outside world. there's people there who have never heard God's name, and as we would say it, or Jesus, or the Bible. But I believe that there's lessons in nature that they would learn the same kind of principles that are taught in this word, that like they would have that opportunity to choose, am I for love or am I for hate? Because I think everyone comes to that point where they choose what do you kind of swear allegiance to, and which side are you on? So like, yeah, there's people who would have never have heard of Jesus' name, and I don't think that person's going to go to quote unquote hell. And I don't believe in by the way, just since we're on this topic, I don't believe in like a hell that is you go to hell and you burn forever. Like, what kind of a loving God would send someone to burn for the eternity? Like, that makes absolutely zero sense. Your loved ones go to heaven and you're having a good old time, and then you're watching Aunt Susie burn for the rest of her life. Like,
Right,
yeah, what is that? That's not biblical at all. So anyway, yeah, I don't believe that way. I don't think that's biblical.
Yeah. I just an interesting, like you see that kind of in there. This is the second coming. This is the arrival of, and this figure is being put up there to usher in this new age.
Yeah, nobody knows the day or the hour, man. It's like if I was living in, let's just say, Poland during the invasion of the Nazis, and I was Jewish or whatever religion, I was black, any minority group that the Nazis didn't like, I'm sure I would like see this as like, this has to be the end. Like, what kind of a world could you imagine that could be more hellish? Watching people get blown up beside you, kids. So, I'm sure people, lights are flickering. I'm sure people at that time and period were like, this has to be close to the end. And I think that humans want it to be over. People who do subscribe to like faith, but nobody knows. Like, it could all restart. It could be another 1,000 years before I believe like that God would come back. But it really, like, I think that it is, if you stack the generations back to back, for if you believe in the biblical narrative, to get back to day one is only like 35 human lifespans of 100 years. So it's like we're all here for just a fluff in the pan. Like, it's just poof and you're gone. So it's like, yeah, how long? Who knows? I want to always live like it could be tomorrow, but I also want to live like I could be here for a long time.
Right.
The most meaningful change that I've ever seen happen in someone's life comes from these very small seeds over time that are planted. And then when that perfect rainstorm comes and that right sunshine hits that seed, then it sprouts. So, like, I'm here to do that.
Well said. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, we went off on a good road there.
Yeah. I didn't mean to get a little preachy, but like this.
No, I don't see. No, I don't see that as preachy at all. You're just speaking what you see as truth. So
yeah,
preachy at all.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question. That was a good question.
Where'd you from here?
I want to ask you this question. I wanted to ask you at the beginning, but I feel like it might be a little bit more appropriate now to hopefully start off on another tangent. But if you had to put, I like working in numbers, so that's why I'm asking it this way. But if you were to put like your life right now on, like, I'm feeling a 1 is, I'm just not even sure. Like, I feel dark, depressed. This is really tough. And 10 being like, I'm perfectly content. I'm happy. I'm doing what I think I should be doing. Like, where is Simon at on that scale right now?
I mean, I just can't even. I'm not trying to be difficult in any manner.
It's antithesis, as he says.
It's antithesis, yeah. Just today's today. Like, I don't know. I ate before we got on here, so I'm full. So yeah, I slept okay last night, so it's good. And then tomorrow, I stubbed my toe on the way at the door, and the dog gets in a fight with the next door neighbor's dog, and my day's not so good. My point being is, like, it's that. And I'm just okay with that. It's do my best to self-regulate, care for the people around me, care for myself, love and compassion, and not worry about whether today's a 10 or a none.
Okay.
It is just, again, I'm not trying to be obstinate. Today's a good day because it's Thursday, because I get to go play soccer tonight and play music. I mean, I couldn't care less what the score is. So,
yeah,
Thursdays are good.
Get out there and move.
And last weekend was not great because there was too much snow in the field. We didn't get to play.
Oh, tough.
So like
Yeah.
that's a two.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of, and Canada won in the Four Nations hockey last night in overtime, and Sidney Crosby got in on the 3 points. So like last night was good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of, I'm not trying to avoid the question. I just don't have that's my answer is
Yeah.
like, ask me 2 hours from now and I'll tell you a different number. So
Yeah. No, that's fair.
it's a thing.
Yeah. If somebody wants to have, would you consider yourself stoic? Did I ask you that before? Like, is this?
The definition of not stoic would be to think of oneself as stoic, right?
Oh my
Like,
word, Simon.
question. Like, you can't. Like, it's like I'm the type of person who's very humble.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, oh, okay. Like,
Somebody said this. I observe you as being stoic.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that, but like 2 days ago, I lost my freaking mind. I was tired and hungry and had like an absolute adult tantrum. So like that guy 2 days ago in like T minus 15 hours is like has as many adult tantrums as the next person or more. So I appreciate you saying that, but I also know how to, I appreciate I really do appreciate, I say yes to this because I know we're going to have an interesting conversation. I try and forget that other people are going to listen to it, because that, of course, affects how we start to answer, for when we start to perceive how we're being perceived. I don't want to come across as like, haywire, but just before I turned on the screen, my hair was like this, and I was like, I don't know, gobbling down too many of these biscotti chips, and I probably didn't look all that stoic. So.
Yeah.
That's as honest an answer as I can give you.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. I was going to ask a question around that, but like,
Go for it.
Well, I'll make this observation, and I say this from a place of like, I consider myself your friend, and if you disagree, like, I'm happy for you to disagree with me.
I see.
But when I'm trying to like put myself in that mindset, I guess I'll say, like, you already know this about me, but I'm relatively opinionated. Like, I have very strong convictions, and when I'm like trying to put myself in your shoes with the way that you seem to approach any difficult topic or subject, I don't think you actually do this, but when the way that you're kind of describing your way of thinking, it seems it's like it's like I imagine a piece of plywood on the ocean, and I'm trying to stand on it as the waves come up and down, and like it is the most unstable, like it's nauseating, like it's hard to stand on something. So that's my observation. With that frame of mind, and if you feel that way, I want to know. If I'm completely wrong, I want to know.
As in malleable?
I guess, yeah. If you want to, I mean, it could be malleable. It seems like you're just like you're constant, like depending on whatever it is we're talking about. Like you don't want to come across as like, well, I stand firmly here, which is fine.
I'll say this: I don't. As best I'm able, I don't how I come across. As best I'm able. I'm, as everybody else, I got an ego, and I hate the idea of someone walking away and going like, what an absolute dick. So I've got that going too. I don't want to become calcified in that this is the only way.
Mm.
I find that you spend some time around older people.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I have
a couple of friends who are within our soccer community. And you can see the people who just got so calcified, honestly, with fear, that everything seems to be through the lens of fear. And they're very stuck in their way. And the conversation is cut off very quickly. You try and engage in it, and you end up, well, all right, cool, you just talk. And I don't want to end up there. I don't want to end up where, 20 years from now, I stand on there and I just like, nope, this is the way it is. And it's the way it's always been. And if you're on the ocean and I'm your boat, I'm a solid barge and I will always be there because this is just the way it is. And you're like, yeah, okay, cool. You've been like crashing on the shore over and over again. And thank goodness you're a solid barge, but like you also ruined the environment. You've got oil leaking everywhere and buddies with you.
Mhm.
So, but thank goodness you like stood firm in your opinion that you calcified in
Yeah, that's a
30
good
years
point.
ago. So I just want to, I just want to be open to ideas. And like, if it really push comes to shove and you like make me like go like absolutely take action on something, because words are easy,
Oh,
then
100%.
I'll like step into that and I'll be that like paddleboard, carbon fiber paddleboard that you can get across the ocean on. But in the meantime,
Until you're called to action.
yeah, I guess the rest of it's just words, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm open to understand. I want to be open to understanding.
Mm. I appreciate how you hijacked my analogy too and made it from a piece of plywood to a barge. Yeah, I was like, oh my word. That's a really good point. I have thought a lot about that. Like I'm 32 going on 33 and I have thought about this a lot and I say that and these aren't just words. I have been thinking about this a lot. Is like as people get older they become so rigid in their ways. Is that inevitable? Cuz I can't honestly say that I've met I can honestly say I don't think I've ever met one man or woman who isn't like if I'm talking to them in their 70s, they're set in their ways. And I don't know, how old are you?
About to turn 50.
Yeah. I say you're doing pretty good. I want to talk to you in 20 years and see like
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll see. We shall see, shall we? But
yeah.
I don't know. I just
Yeah, I like that.
it's hard when you may also, let's not just say like suddenly, anytime you're interacting with anybody and they come at it as like, I absolutely know the absolute way that this is. It's the only way. And until you just agree with me, I shall like steamroll you till you get there.
Mhm.
Nobody hangs out with them.
Yeah.
It's a very lonely existence and great. Like you've got like a solid opinion and you're right in your ways. And I get all those things. And also like, that's pretty lonely life. And there's not a lot of, God forbid, you might just have missed a couple things along the way. And often those people, again, they're just really
Mm.
seem to be very unhappy people.
Yeah.
And
No,
they
I would
don't,
agree.
and it permeates into everything they go do.
Mhm.
Like I don't know. That's it for me. I'm just trying to not be absolutely set in my ways, because that seems to me that's very like closed. I don't know. That's very close minded.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to, maybe it's malleable.
I think it's malleable.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, we've talked now for, face to face somewhere around 2 hours and I can see that your mind can be changed on things. And I think that's good. It's so funny when I grew up, the thought of being open minded was almost coined as like a bad thing, or it was like, be careful. And like you said, from a place of fear.
Mm.
And yeah, it's like when you have the small group of people, you have that community, things seem really good and you don't want to change. And then as things start to grow, and this isn't business, this isn't anything, more influence starts to come in and people get uneasy because like, oh, you can't control a situation or you don't know everything that's going on and you can't define the values in the same way because these other people hold different values. But yeah, I actually really do appreciate that. And I have tried to make sure to find the balance because I think there is a balance. There's some things, like you said, when called to action and push comes to shove, I need to be able to stand with for what I believe, even if I'm wrong, really. And if I am wrong, then hopefully I have a fall on my face moment and I realize I was wrong and have the open-mindedness enough to see like, oh yeah, I fought for that on that hill. Even in marriage, I died on that hill and now I see I was wrong and it was not worth it. So it's like, yeah, sometimes standing, as long as it's like there's a little bit of open mindedness or enough open mindedness enough to be able to be malleable, but don't be sand. Yeah, I like that. I like how I
Yeah.
said
Where
that.
you like the wet noodle.
Yeah, just like, oh, that's
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you ever
Yeah.
shake someone's hand and it's just like a wet noodle and you're like, who are you? Like, give me something strong to grab onto. Yeah. Oh, well, I appreciate you sharing in the way that you have. It's been a pretty eye opening. I'll just say one more thing because I want to hear your thought on this. Unless you have to go, do I need to let you
No,
go?
I'm good. I got time.
Okay. So you have been working a lot in AI, at least based on our past conversations. I assume you're still working a good bit. something that has fascinated me is this topic of conversation around consciousness and creating AGI. For those who don't know what that is, like this artificial general intelligence, or essentially a demigod that we create out of all of this. But what I find so laughable about this is, Elon Musk or whoever else, Sam Altman, or some of the guys like Lex Friedman, if they know who that is, they talk about this and like, oh, it's going to usher in this time where in this AGI is able to kind of answer all of life's fundamental questions. But what people don't seem to realize is that everything that all the AI systems we're creating is based on our own prior knowledge. And I don't think that you can have something built on prior knowledge that's going to just suddenly combust, spontaneously combust new knowledge. That makes no sense to me. They can do the same things that we've done in the past and faster. I mean, if you teach someone how to do 1+1, and that every time they see 1+1, they're going to know it equals 2, but they're not going to be able to like step outside of those bounds. I don't think. I think it's really silly that people think that that's going to happen. Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, I honestly have no idea. I've taken a lot of a step back from the AI stuff. I think I malleable
Mm-hmm.
realized I knew less than I thought I knew. In fact, I knew just enough to get myself in trouble and pontificate about things I thought I knew, and then spoke to people who knew a lot more and realized I'm going to stop talking about AI. So even to your question there around AGI, I don't really know. I do like the term I came to from Jordan Rapp, all the neat mathy math. That's what like really bright people call AI is cool mathy math.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I've taken a big step back from that. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm still involved in a couple of projects that are utilizing elements of machine learning
Mm-hmm.
and artificial intelligence. I'm going to leave that up to much brighter people than me in that specific field.
I respect that.
Yeah, again, you get enthusiastic and you start to learn about it, and then you get asked your opinion on it and how it works, and you pontificate about like, oh, I think it works like this and it works like that. And my dad was smart, and he used AI, so maybe I know AI too. And then later you go, huh, that's actually a really unimpressive answer that thing just gave, and that's wrong, and that's nonsense. And tell me again how this is super cool. And so there are things that we're seeing that seem to be, you know, cool. I don't know. But I do have a friend who just put it so well. He's like, if I see another AI video, I just don't care. I don't care anymore. And we pretty quickly. And I forget the name of the curve. There's like this curve of like like enthusiasm, despair, reality, and then
Oh
suddenly
yeah, I've seen this.
today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I've certainly went through that same trend.
Yeah.
Um, I'm much more interested in uh, other things. Right now, we're working on. I've come across because of my job at the feed doing talent ID. I started coming across muscle oxygen sensors, Moxie, the Moxie monitor.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool tech. Understanding what your muscles are doing, like what your SMO2 levels are. Started going like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I've looked into that a lot more. Excuse me.
Yeah, no worries.
My SMO2s are low. So yeah, getting really into that. Trying to understand what that is, but again, keeping within the frames of like what I do and don't know. And
Mm.
I just really enjoy going and finding people that know a lot about, what do they call them, secret squirrels? They like have incredible nuggets of information tucked away in their cheek about this one specific thing.
Mm.
So we've come across, and since I've kind of got on that journey of trying to understand muscle oxygen training, I've come across these really bright people who have deep understanding of what it is. And I go, that's really interesting. That was pretty cool. One of the more profound experiences I've had recently was spending time with Jessica Tulamoa, who was a para-Olympian, completely blind swimmer, then triathlete.
Wow.
Have you ever? I've never spent time with someone who's completely blind, any real time, being around, but I never actually sat and
Yeah,
talked.
yeah, yeah.
To see her navigate the world blew my mind. Like, it was just so incredible to see her just navigate the world, navigate her phone, navigate the apps, navigate. And then when she started speaking about RPE, like rate of perceived effort, she's like, I don't have a screen. I can't, unless someone's there, I can't look at my watch. So she can run on a treadmill and knows her heart rate within like 3 beats. She can push on the power meter and be like, 213. You're like, holy smokes, 212, but close enough.
Yeah.
And then to see her now, we've been introduced her to muscle oxygen training, and with the sensor that we've started to build, I'm like, it's incredible to watch her navigate that. So those kind of experiences, again, going in open-minded, asking questions, and prepared to say, as I'm prepared to say about AI, like, I thought I knew a lot more about that than I did. We'll see where that journey takes me, but that's my current interest. Again, it always to pull it all the way back. I can figure out how in the long run it relates to carry water to water purification. I can kind of see the linkage. It would take me way too long to kind of get there and here, but to me, it's meaningful because I can kind of see how I could loop it back. But in the meantime, just passionately learning about muscle oxygen training. Now, this thing right here.
So is it wrap around the leg or arm or something?
Yeah, it goes on your VL, looks into the muscle through near-infrared tech. This company called Grasper we're looking at right now. It's cool. It's just interesting to see how that works. You start to realize, like, all right, you can do non-invasive lactate testing. That's really cool. You can also see in the morning when you wake up, your O2 sats are here, and then if you go walk around and invigorate, they rise up. And if you go and really invigorate, they go even higher up. And you start to go like, oh, right, that's how my body works. And so RPE is everything, right? Like rate of perceived effort is everything. But to have the ability to calibrate that without pricking your ear and being in a lab and doing all this invasive
without being
stuff.
so barbaric.
Yeah, like super barbaric. Like, hey, everybody, just jump out of the pool and stab you in the face. Like, kind of pick your ears. Look, there's a moment in our sport in triathlon where I think a lot of us remember. You saw Lionel Sanders on the highway in Kona. Mikhail Eden is his coach. He's got the lactate monitor. You got Rudy Von Berg, Joe Skipper, and Colin Kirchner all training together. Lionel goes out, crushes the workout, and afterwards he's wobbling on the highway. And for all of many of us who kind of knowing that feeling like, oh, he just lost the race. He just cooked himself. It's Wednesday or whatever it was. He's done. And they prick his ear, and then they kind of go like, you can see him go like, oh, like that, you overdid it. If he'd had a muscle oxygen sensor on, he never would have done that. He would have just known, like it would have in real time told him like,
chill,
you're over, you're cooking it. So yeah, you get to see the coal face, how much coal is in the actual thing. And it's being, I'm not saying it's not the missing link. It is not some profound big thing, but when you start going through people who are using it, and then you start realizing there's this for 2 decades now, people have pretty deep understanding of it, and particularly the last decade, there's something there. And so, I got really involved in that, really interested in it. There's a little bit of an AI piece in it. Again, I really understand it. Just came to that place. I don't really understand how that works. I thought I did. I don't.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Maybe I'll say the same thing about this on the plank on the ocean, but we shall see. In the meantime, I think it's kind of fun and interesting and keeps me preoccupied in between soccer games.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for, just being who you are unapologetically and letting curiosity drive you. I live a lot of my life in that way. So obviously I'm biased when I say I appreciate that, but I do appreciate that. And I think that's cool.
I look forward to the day we finally get out for that big paddle. So, and the fishing trip. So
yes, sir. Come July, right? When do you start planning for this fishing trip, by the way?
It's in the works, but tell your father-in-law he's welcome to come, and we'll go see if we can catch a bluegill lingcod and then put it back. So
sounds good. I'll text him after this. I already sent him the dates, and he was somewhat into it, so I need to seal it up.
Beauty.
All right, Simon. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, nice to see you, Seth. Stay well.
Thank you so much to Simon for coming on the pod and going deep with me on some topics that are touchy and hard to talk about. And I just am very grateful to have conversations with people who are real and are not afraid to say what they think and what they believe, um, because I think it's edifying and it opens my mind and hopefully more people's minds to think about what it means to believe, to not believe, to love somebody who's sitting on the other side of the table from you when you have some of these conversations. So yeah, thank you so much to Simon for coming on, and thank you guys for listening. If you have any comments, would love to hear what you're thinking and what you believe. Keep it kosher, obviously. Um, yeah, if you made it to this point in the podcast, though, I just want to say thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. If you could like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell on YouTube. If you could leave a review, leave a comment, or any of those things on the platforms that allow for it, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts, would really appreciate it. And of course, as always, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can do so at the stupidquestions.show website. Links in the description. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for being here. See ya.